It's a Gundam!
Welcome back to It's a Gunpla, the show where I build Gunpla, and also the show whose name I did not think out very well. So we're continuing real grade GaoGaiGar, so now we're starting Stealth Gao, and so the end appears to be in sight. So first up is GaoGaiGar's helmet, and I was always fascinated by this because if you haven't seen GaoGaiGar, when Stealth Gao combines with Gaigar, the helmet drops down onto Gaigar's head. The G-stone from Gaigar's forehead extends into the helmet, and then the face mask slides up either out of Gaigar's neck or somehow from the rest of the helmet. It's always been unclear, and it's definitely very strange, but at the same time it's kind of awesome. Well, it isn't even kind of awesome. It is awesome because Gaigar had the typical mecha anime thing, or the classic mecha super robot anime thing, where the super robot's face was expressive and his mouth moved as he spoke. Something that, as an American who's not used to the classic super robot animes, I always found very strange. Even though, as a kid, I remember watching the dub of Voltron, and Voltron's mouth would open when it did attacks in certain poses, and it didn't bother me then, so maybe that's part of why it doesn't bother me now. Now, due to the limitations of the media, obviously this model doesn't have the G-stone that'll just slide from Gaigar's head into the helmet. Now, interestingly, the Soul Chogokin GaoGaiGar actually did have a gimmick. That when you put the helmet down, the G-stone in Gaigar's head pushed the G-stone in the GaoGaiGar helmet forward. It was a really cool gimmick. And not to discount this is a unique and actually quite a good model, but the Soul Chogokin GaoGaiGar just did so much cool stuff, and given how much it cost, it's better of. Now, the face has an interesting design, but I did not line it because, well, A, I'm being lazy about it, but B, if you've watched any of my other builds, I generally go for the anime look on kits like these. So, I actually left it unlined because I think even without being lined, it looks more like the anime than if it was lined realistically. So, now here's full transparency. Installing this G-stone in his forehead piece is a complete pain in the neck, so I'm just going to cut how much I struggle and let you know how much time comes out of it. Now, the reason this is so difficult is the G-stone is meant to fit in a specific orientation, because there's actually a G lasered into it. And so with it having to sit in one specific orientation, that makes things way more difficult. I'm just cutting in here to show this. I had so much trouble with this that I brought out my helping hands, which has a magnifying glass and alligator clips to help with this. So anyhow, we're going to jump ahead to when it's actually done. By the way, so far I've cut out like 2.5 minutes of working on this. Okay, so this took over 6 minutes for me to install this. And I used tricks that if you watched Bismarck, there are tricks I've used for building stuff that I don't use very often that I used on this that I had that much difficulty. So, anyhow, we're gonna get back to it. So, next we need this length of wire. So we're coming down to the corner of my mat because we need a certain length of it in centimeters. So we're going to come over here, measure it out. Now I always put some extra on these because you can take length off, but you can't put it back on. So I always leave a little bit of extra. Now, I do not recommend doing this with your nippers because this is a wire, it's metal. These nippers, I actually know for a fact, they can cut certain metals, which is why I didn't hesitate to use them. So just be careful, especially if you make sure your nippers are actually rated. Well, nippers, side cutter, whatever you want to call them, are rated to cut metals. So this wire is an interesting piece. Most versions of GaoGaiGar have some sort of arm attaching the helmet to Stealth Gao. Interestingly, I actually don't think that was present in the anime. So what I did there is I just used my screwdriver as to help put a nice round bend in this. You don't have to do that. You can use your fingers or you can eyeball it. This is just my inner perfectionist wanting it a certain way. So we're going to bring this piece in and thread it in. So once you've got both sides threaded, you want to pull both at the same time, and you'll notice that it helps shape the wire to the proper distance. So then you're going to attach these red sections and create a flexible arm. Now, I actually made a modification to mine so I can take the arm on and off at will, but there actually is a ball joint that will connect it to the helmet, so you can just detach this from the ball joint. Which, in all honesty, I go back and forth because I'm leaning on just doing that permanently. Now, the reason I'm taking my time on this is because basically at the terminating piece, that you are going to bend the wire in a certain way to attach them to this terminating piece. And I had the piece backwards. This is why you always refer to your instructions before you do anything permanent. So now, what I'm going to do is, now that I have way too much length on this, I'm going to cut some of the excess length off, now that I've got the piece mostly constructed. So I've got my tweezers, and so basically the way you want to bend this, one piece is going to sit over top the other, so you need them a little bit asymmetric. So I'm going to take my nipper, cut the excess off, and then we're going to bend that down. just like that. So then we'll take some of the excess length off the other one, but not quite as much as the first. And again, using the tweezers for leverage, we want to bend that one straight. And then you also want to make sure they're flush. So, there's that. So now, as we can see, this is the back of the helmet. This has the ball joint that connects to the arm. Now, I'm not gonna lie, that is not the best feeling ball joint, because I do not like small ball joints like this. And so then we're going to put the back of GaoGaiGar's wing decorations on his helmet on. Now we need the rest of the helmet, and we're going to marry it together. So the helmet is held together with this hook. So it pins into the front and then hooks onto the back. I wish I was holding it a little lower. Oh, there we go. I joke about my spectacularly terrible camera work, which when my tax comes in, we're going to improve my camera setup quite a bit. So once that's slid all the way in and secure, then we're just going to snap the helmet together, and then we're finished for this episode. Thanks for watching. Check out my fantasy story, King of Mercenaries, on Fiction Press. Link is in the description below. And see you for the next part where we'll be finishing or continuing Stealth Gao.